always in the right perspective, so you don't have to worry about it being twisted like the sheep heart. But you're going to have the pulmonary trunk, which is on top, and then behind the pulmonary trunk, you're going to have the aortic arch. So you got a pulmonary trunk running above, aortic arch below. Now remember, since this is a fetal pig, they do not have they don't have working lungs. They have a bypass here, and here's your ductus arteriosus. See that little membrane connecting them? So that's your ductus arteriosus right there. So the aortic arch, instead of branching 3 ways in a human, it branches 2 ways. So you're going to have your, always got to figure out my left and right, the left subclavian vein here, left subclavian artery, which is this branch. And then on this side, you're going to have the brachiocephalic branch. So this is the brachiocephalic artery right here. That's going to branch 3 ways. You're going to have the left common carotid, which extends up to their neck, and then the right common carotid, which extends to the other side of the neck. And then finally, the last branch, you're going to have the right subclavian artery. So you got the right subclavian artery over here, and then the left subclavian artery branching directly over here. So looking at the neck, this big bulb here is the larynx. It's kind of similar to our Adam's apple. So that's the larynx, and then underneath that, you're going to have the trachea, which connects to it. So don't get that confused with the esophagus, because this is the airway here. That's the trachea, and then on top of the trachea, we got the bow tie gland. So that's going to be your thyroid gland, which sits right on there. Looking at the bottom of the heart, you're going to have the inferior vena cava, which is right here. And then, so you got 3 tubes underneath here. Inferior vena cava. This one is the esophagus, is more musculature, more smooth muscle. And then this vessel here, really thick, especially we filled it with latex. That's the descending aorta, since we're still in the thoracic cavity. So pretty much the aorta going down there. This flap of skin that is left was the diaphragm once upon a time. So they can ask for that. Going underneath the diaphragm, we have the liver. So they have a huge liver compared to us. And this was your umbilical vein where you cut the umbilical cord off. So that was connected there. And it runs down into the inferior vena cava, like it's supposed to. So the gallbladder, if you look underneath the liver, it's going to be right there, that little sac. It's the gallbladder. The stomach is this bag, and then the spleen is about the same color as the liver there. So they have a weird shaped spleen compared to ours. But if you lift the stomach up, you'll see this brainy material right there. That brainy material, that glandular tissue, is the pancreas gland. Pancreas gland is underneath the stomach. So the stomach is there, lift it up, and there's the pancreas. So if we look at the extension of the stomach into the small intestines, this tube right here, it's going to be your duodenum. So they can ask for that specific part. So if they put it there, that's the duodenum. So if they ask anywhere in the middle here, we're not really going to ask jejunum. This is just small intestines. But really and truly, if they're asking for the structure that's binding it together, this pink material right here, that pink material is the mesentery. The mesentery is binding all the small intestines and holding it together. If you look under the mesentery, you've got some nodes there. So they're going to have some lymph nodes underneath that mesentery there. As your list talks about mesentery and lymph nodes. So if we continue down the small intestines and follow it down, we can see the end of it, which will extend into the cecum. So really they don't have an appendix, but this would be similar to our appendix. But for test, the whole thing is the cecum, and the ileum connects to the cecum. So between those, we're going to call this the ileocecal junction, because you can't necessarily see the valve. So you got the ileocecal junction here. So the large intestine, they got a spiral large intestine. We can ask for that. And the large intestine will continue down. If they ask for this tube here, that's still part of the colon. You can use colon and large intestine interchangeably. I'll count either one of those. So don't be confused. This entire tube is the last part of the large intestine right here. Now, I think most of y'all had girls. Most of y'all had boys over here, right? Y'all had a girl? Okay. So ovaries, you're going to definitely see the uterine horn down here at the base of the bladder. So here's the bladder, and you're going to see 2 pretty loose, kind of squiggly, looks like ramen noodles coming out of the base of the bladder, and you're actually going to have the ovaries attached to it. You'll see the ovaries really good. In the boy, you don't actually see the ovaries too well. Actually, this one might be a boy. Maybe. Anyways, you don't actually see them too well, and you'll just have the vas deferens, which wraps around, and it's really tight around the bladder. So if we look down at the bottom, the base of the ovaries, of the uterine tubes, this tissue in this hole is the uterus. The uterus is there. You got the bladder and the umbilical arteries. Coming back up, missed some things. We're gonna have the peritoneum, which is covering the kidney here. So they can ask the peritoneum, and really the peritoneum is a membrane that goes all the way around. So they're asking for a membrane down here in the abdominal area. It's gonna be the peritoneum. So the peritoneum covers the kidneys. These are kidneys right here, one on both sides, and you're gonna have ureters, which extend from those kidneys. This guy right here is the ureter, which will then finally go into the bladder. I believe I got most of the things on this guy. So if we would to remove some of these structures here and actually look at what's going on in the vasculature, we can see the abdominal aorta coming down. And then don't forget though, you have the umbilical arteries there. So don't mistake that for the iliac arteries, because this is the big umbilical artery. So they don't really have an internal iliac now, so it's kind of different as far as what we learned before. So the common iliac artery is going to be there. So this first little branch is the common iliac artery when I'm lifting up. And then once we get to this little branching, after that, we're going to have the external iliac. So just to kind of go through that a little bit, another review of it. Abdominal aorta, common iliac artery, and then external iliac artery right there. So, I miss anything? Nope.